Good morning, students. I hope you all are safe and fine at your home. So this video is for the students of class 9th, subject science, chapter number 9, that is force and laws of motion. And this is your lecture number 2. So today, topics to be discussed in this lecture are Newton's second law of motion. And in this lecture, we shall discuss a term which is called momentum. So let's start with today's lecture. So students, in the previous lecture, we discussed about Newton's first law of motion. That first law of motion indicates that whenever an unbalanced external force acts on an object, its velocity changes. Means the object gets an acceleration. So, in Newton's second law of motion, we would like to know how the acceleration depends upon the force applied and how can we measure that force. So, before starting Newton's second law of motion, let us discuss some of the everyday life examples. Suppose there is a truck. So, you know that the mass of the truck, it is very large. Okay. And that truck, it is moving with a very slow speed. Say it has 5 meter per second. Okay. The speed or the velocity of that truck is very slow. Very less. Now, whenever this truck, it is moving with this much slow velocity, so it can strike a person standing in its path. Okay, so as a result, the impact will be more. So the question arises, why? Why the impact will be more? The velocity is low, no doubt, but the mass is large. Let us take another example to understand that. Suppose I take a bullet. A bullet is fired from a gun. You know that the mass of the bullet is very less. Okay. And whenever it is fired from a gun, the velocity of that bullet, it is large. Okay. So, it may kill any person which is coming in its path. So, we can say the impact is more. So, the question arises why? Why the impact is more? The mass is less. So, from these two examples, what can we conclude? We can conclude that there exists some quantity that combines the object's mass as well as velocity. Okay. There exists a quantity which is combining the mass of the object as well as the velocity of the object. So what is that quantity called? That quantity is called as momentum. Okay. So what is momentum? Product of mass and velocity. In the first case, the mass is large but the velocity is low. So, when we combine these two, the impact will be more. In the second case of the bullet, the mass is less but the velocity is large. So, when we combine these two quantities, the impact will be more. Means what we can say? The momentum is more. So what is momentum? Momentum is the product of mass and velocity. And it is represented by a letter P. So what we can say? P is equal to mv. Where P is the momentum of the object, m is the mass of the object, and v is the velocity of the object. So momentum is defined as the product of mass and velocity. P is equal to mv. Okay. So this is the formula to calculate momentum. Now, how to calculate the SI unit of this momentum P? The SI unit of mass, it is kg, and of velocity, it is meter per second. So kg meter per second. That is the SI unit of momentum. Okay. And one more thing. This momentum P, is it scalar quantity or vector quantity? It is a vector quantity. Why? Because it has magnitude as well as direction. That's why momentum is a vector quantity. Clear, students? Let us consider one example. If the object is at rest, rest means it is not moving, means we can say velocity is 0. So if v is 0, momentum P, that will also become 0. No doubt, whatever the mass it has, momentum is mass into velocity. If v is 0, the momentum will be 0. So if the object is at rest, momentum is 0. But in the above two cases that we discussed, in both the cases, the momentum is large. Here m is large, so momentum is large. Here v is large, so that's why momentum is large. So coming back to Newton's second law of motion, let us take an example. Suppose there is an object of mass m. It is moving in a straight line with initial velocity u. Okay, u is initial velocity. After time t, it acquires final velocity v. Okay, on the application of force F. When the force is applied on this object of mass m, initial velocity was u, and after time t, it acquires final velocity v. So what is the initial and final momentum? Initial momentum, that will be P1. It will be mass into velocity. Velocity, that will be initial. Initial velocity is represented as u, so mu. And final velocity, that will be Pt. That is equal to mv, where v is the final velocity. Okay. Now, what does Newton's second law states? Newton's second law states that the rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to the applied force in the direction of force. Okay, the rate of change of momentum, it is directly proportional to applied force. And in which direction? In the direction of force. So you know the initial momentum now, and you know the final momentum also. So what is the change in momentum? Change in momentum will be final momentum minus initial momentum. That is P2 minus P1. So change in momentum is directly proportional to P2 minus P1. What is P2? mv. What is P1? mu. So mv minus mu. Now take m as common. So it will be v minus u in the bracket. Okay. Now this is change in momentum. So what is rate of change of momentum? That will be this whole quantity divided by time. That will give the rate of change of momentum. So rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to m into v minus u upon time. Now according to Newton's second law of motion, this rate of change of momentum, it is directly proportional to force, the applied force. So we can write F now, force. So force is directly proportional to m v minus u upon time period t. Now we have to remove this proportionality sign. So we can take the proportionality constant k. So F is equal to k m v minus u upon time. Now you know that this quantity m v minus u upon time, that is acceleration. So we can substitute the value of a here. So that will give F is equal to kma, where A is m into v minus u upon t. That is rate of change of velocity. Okay. So if k is 1, F is equal to ma. Okay. So this is the formula to calculate force, to measure force. If you know the mass, if you know the acceleration of a object, you can calculate the force. So you can highlight this formula. Now, how to calculate the SI unit of force? What is the SI unit of mass? It is kg. And what is the SI unit of acceleration? It is meter per second square. So it is kg meter per second square. That is the SI unit of force. Or what we can say, this kg meter per second square, that is equal to Newton. That is represented as capital N. Okay, the SI unit of force is kg meter per second square, or in simple we can write Newton. Both are correct. But we use this term mostly. Okay, so this is the SI unit of force. Now, how to define 1 Newton? Force is said to be 1 Newton. Take everything as 1. Force is ma. Okay, the unit of force is Newton. The unit of mass is kg. The unit of acceleration is meter per second square. So force is said to be 1 Newton if the object of mass of 1 kg, this is mass, if the object of mass of 1 kg produces an acceleration of 1 meter per second square. That will be 1 Newton of force. So you can write down this definition. Force is said to be 1 Newton if the object of mass 1 kg produces an acceleration of 1 meter per second square. Okay, you do not need to cram the formula. You can just apply simple. F is equal to ma. What is the unit of force? Newton. What is the unit of mass? Kg. Unit of acceleration? Meter per second square. So write 1, 1, 1. So now you are asked what is 1 Newton. So force is 1 Newton when the object of mass of 1 kg produces an acceleration of 1 meter per second square. Simple. Clear, students? So this was about Newton's second law of motion. What is second law? The rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to the applied force in the direction of force. Okay? Now, this Newton's second law of motion, it is applicable in everyday life also. Let us take one example. Have you noticed that while catching a fast-moving cricket ball, the fielder in the ground, it gradually pulls his hand backward? Okay, the fielder pulls his hand backward while catching a fast-moving ball. Why? What is the reason behind? This is actually based on Newton's second law of motion. Let us understand it. This is the first case where this is the fielder. He is catching a ball. Okay. Suppose I consider initial velocity of the ball is 100 meter per second. Now when the fielder catches the ball, the final velocity, it will automatically become 0. So final velocity, that is v, that is equal to 0 meter per second. And I have considered the mass of the ball as 0.2 kg. You can consider 1 kg, 2 kg, whatever you want. So you know u, you know v, and you know m also. This is the first case when the fielder is catching the ball in very less time. But in the second case, the fielder is taking some time. He is bending his or pulling his hand backward while catching a fast moving ball. The initial velocity I have considered the same, 100 meter per second. Now the final velocity, that will also become 0, because after the ball has been caught in his hand, the final velocity, that will be 0. So V is 0 meter per second, and the mass of the ball I have considered 0.2 kg in the first case, so 0.2 kg in the second case. So what is the difference in these two cases? In first case, he is catching a ball with taking a very less time. But in the second case, the fielder is taking some more time. He is consuming few more seconds while pulling his hand backward in order to catch a fast moving ball. Now what is the reason behind why this fielder is moving or pulling his hand backward? Why? You might have noticed that the difference in these two, it is only just the time of catching. In the first case, the time is very less. But in the second case, the fielder is taking some time to catch the ball. So what is the formula for force according to Newton's second law? Force is ma. Now substitute the value of a. A is V minus U upon T. So force is equal to m V minus U upon T. Okay, now see, m is same in both the cases. V, it is also same, that is 0 in both the cases, and U is also same in both the cases. It means the above three quantities, they are same in both the cases. So what we can say? We can say that force, it is inversely proportional to time taken. Okay, this quantity, it becomes inversely proportional to time. What does it mean? If force is more, time is less. If time is more, force is less. Okay. In the first case, the time taken by the fielder to catch a ball, it is less. If time is less, means force is more. So he is applying a greater force to catch a ball. So he may get hurt. But in the second case, he is taking time. So time is more. If time is more, force will be less. Okay, the fielder has to apply very less force to catch a ball. So while catching the ball, it is easy to catch while pulling his hand backward. Why? Because he is increasing the time period, and if the time period is increased, the amount of the force to be applied by the fielder on this ball, it will be decreased. Okay. In the first case, time is less. So force applied is more. And in the second case, time is more. He is taking more time to catch the ball. So time is more, then force which is needed to be applied on the ball while catching, it will be less. So in the first case, the fielder, it may get injury. So this is the wrong method to catch the ball. And in the second case, he will not get injury. He will be able to catch the ball very easily. So this is better. So this is the application of Newton's second law of motion only. Force is inversely proportional to time period. Clear, students? Now we have derived first law of motion and second law of motion. So there is one more topic, derivation of first law of motion from second law. Okay, from this Newton's second law of motion, that is F is equal to ma, we can derive the first law. How? Let us see. From second law, what is the formula? Force is equal to ma. M means mass, A means acceleration. Now substitute the value of A in this equation. A is equal to V minus U upon T. So F is equal to M V minus U upon T. Now take time period on this side. So Ft is equal to mv minus mu. You can shift m also on this side, or Ft upon m, that is equal to v minus u. If force is 0, so the whole quantity, it will become 0. Whatever the time is, if force is 0, this whole quantity on left hand side, it will become 0. So this quantity will also become 0. It means v minus u is equal to 0. Okay, from this equation, v is equal to u. It means final velocity is equal to initial velocity. Means if f is 0 and v is equal to u for whatever the time t is taken, it means that the object, it will continue moving with the uniform velocity u throughout the time t. Okay, and if u is 0, then v will also become 0. It means the object is at rest. So this is the first law of motion. If the object is at rest, it will remain at rest. If the object is in motion, it will remain in motion in a straight line until or unless an external force is applied on it. So if f is 0, v will be equal to u. It means the object will be moving with uniform velocity for whatever the time t is taken. And if u is 0, it means v will also become 0. So the object is at rest. So the first law is proved now. So that was about the derivation part. Now let us take an example. A constant force acts on an object of mass 5 kg for a duration of 2 seconds. It increases the object's velocity from 3 meter per second to 7 meter per second. Find the magnitude of the applied force. Now, this force was applied for the duration of 5 seconds. Then, what would be the final velocity of an object? In this case, mass is 5 kg, time is 2 seconds, final velocity is 7 meter per second, and initial velocity is 3 meter per second. So you have to calculate the magnitude of the applied force. So just apply the formula. F is equal to mv minus u upon t. So substitute these values. You will get your answer 10 Newton. Newton is the SI unit of force. So this was the first part. Now the second part is if the same force is applied for the duration of 5 seconds. Now the time is 5 seconds. So you have to calculate the final velocity. So use the same formula. F is equal to mv minus u upon t. Now the time period is given 5 seconds. And you have to calculate final velocity. Force, that is 10 Newton, you have calculated now. So just simplify it. You will get the value of v. That will be 13 meter per second. Clear? One more thing, students. You know this formula. Force is equal to ma. Okay. So, this acceleration, it can be calculated by two things. Accordingly to the question, whatever the quantity the thing is given. Acceleration, the first formula is v minus u upon t. If final velocity v, initial velocity u and time period t is given, you can calculate a. And the second formula is v square minus u square is equal to 2as. Okay. Final velocity given, initial velocity given, but time period is not given. So you cannot apply this formula. You have to apply this formula where s is given, means the distance. So you can calculate the value of a from this equation and substitute here. So these are the two formulas for calculating acceleration. Keep this thing in mind. So that's it for today's lecture. What is your homework? Your homework is solve the examples 9.2, 9.3, 9.4 and 9.5 given on page number 121. And along with these examples, you have to solve exercise question number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14 and 16. Okay, in these questions just the application of formula is there. These are not so lengthy questions, so you can do easily. Now I shall discuss the homework solutions of lecture number 1. In text question number 1, which of the following has more inertia? A rubber ball and a stone of same size. Okay, they are of same size, but the mass of stone is heavy as compared to rubber ball. So the stone has more inertia. B part, a bicycle and a train. The train has more mass as compared to bicycle, so that's why the train has more inertia. C part, a 5 rupee coin and a 1 rupee coin. A 5 rupee coin has larger mass as compared to 1 rupee coin, so 5 rupee coin has more inertia. So this was question number 1. Question number 2. In the following example, try to identify the number of times the velocity of the ball changes. A football player kicks a football to another player of his team who kicks the football towards the goal. The goalkeeper of the opposite team collects the football and kicks it towards a player of his own team. Also identify the agent applying the force in each case. So the answer is 5 times the velocity of the ball changes. 4 times. How? Number 1, when a football player kicks a football to another player of his team. Number 2, when the member of the team kicks football towards goal. Number 3, the goalkeeper of the opposite team collects the ball. And number 4, the goalkeeper kicks the football towards a player of his own team. So this is question number 2. Question number 3, explain why some of the leaves may get detached from a tree if we vigorously shake its branch. Actually, this is related to inertia of rest. What happens when we shake the branch of the tree? The tree and its branches, they come into the motion, but the leaves, they tend to remain at rest due to inertia of rest. So that's why they are detached from the tree. Okay. Question number 4. Why do you fall in the forward direction when a moving bus brakes to a stop and falls backward when it accelerates from rest? So this question holds inertia of rest and inertia of motion. In the first case, when a moving bus applies brakes to a stop, so what happens? Our feet, which is in contact with the seat, it will come to rest because the bus has stopped. But our upper part of the body, means our head, it will tend to maintain its state of motion because earlier it was in motion. So that's why we fall forward. And in the second case, we are falling backward. That is inertia of rest. When the bus accelerates from rest, our feet, which is in contact on the seat, it comes in the state of motion. Okay, because the bus has started moving. So the feet, it will come into the motion. But our upper part of the body, that is head, it will tend to maintain its state of rest. So that's why we fall backward. Okay. Now coming to exercise questions. Question number 1 was, an object experiences a net zero external unbalanced force. Is it possible for the object to be traveling with a non-zero velocity? So the answer to the first part is yes. Because the object is experiencing a net zero external unbalanced force. Why? Because according to the first law of motion, if the object it maintains its state of rest or of uniform linear motion. Okay, if the force is zero, then according to the first law, the object it will maintain its state of rest or of uniform motion. Second part, if yes, state the conditions that must be placed on the magnitude and direction of the velocity. So what are the conditions? If the object is traveling with a finite velocity, okay, it is traveling with non-zero velocity, it means it has some velocity. So if it is traveling with some finite velocity, then the object will continue with that very much velocity in that given direction which is already been traveled by that object. Okay, whatever the magnitude, whatever the direction the object has initially, it will remain. So this is first question. Question number 2. When a carpet is beaten with a stick, the dust comes out of it. Explain. It is due to inertia. When the carpet is beaten with a stick, the fibers of the carpet come in motion, but the dust particles maintain their rest position due to inertia of rest, and that's why they fall behind. Question number 3. Why is it advised to tie any luggage kept on the roof of a bus with a rope? Why? Because when a moving bus, it stops suddenly, then what will happen? The luggage which is kept on its roof, they will maintain its state of motion because the bus is in motion. So the luggage will also be in motion. Now as soon as the bus stops, the luggage, it may fall down from roof. That's why luggage is tied with a rope on the roof of a bus to avoid its falling. Clear? Last question, question number 4. A batsman hits a cricket ball which then rolls on a level ground. After covering a short distance, the ball comes to rest. Now you have to tell the reason why the ball slows to stop. The reason is C part. There is a force on the ball which is opposing the motion. Which is that force? That force is frictional force. Okay, so the answer is C. The ball is rolling on the ground. Now, it will stop after some time. Why? Because the frictional force comes into play. The frictional force is responsible for the stoppage of this ball after a period of time. So the answer is C. So that's it for today's lecture. I hope you are clear with today's Newton's second law. Thank you. Have a nice day.